Do you own a condominium unit in Miami, just like one that I have behind me? And you might be thinking of selling, but you want to make sure you tackle into all the necessary steps to get it sold specific to Miami, Florida. Well, you are in the right place because I'm going to tell you everything that's needed to close a transaction on a condominium unit, from disclosures, legality, recertification of the buildings, assessments, qualifying your buyer, and more. But before we dive in, I want to introduce myself. I am Stephanie Mogollon, your local Miami and South Florida real estate agent. And if you're thinking of buying, selling, investing, or renting here in Miami, Florida, do not hesitate to reach out to me. Just send me a text, send me an email, give me a call, and I'll be more than happy to help you make the move. So we are officially in a buyer's market when it comes to condominium units. So you need to be extra competitive when it comes to placing your property for sale and also going through the entire process so you make sure you close on the sale. First step will be price, and price. Make sure you price your property competitively. Do not overprice, do not underprice it, price it competitively. But when it comes to condos, specifically in Miami, you need to consider so many variables because condo units can vary substantially in price, building to building, even if they are next to each other, and unit to unit, even if it's in the same building. Just look at Aston Martin building here in downtown where the penthouse is $59 million and the building right next to it has units available for $500,000. So you need to really know what you're pricing, the view, the floor, the finishes, so many aspects even within the same building. So take that into consideration. Number 2, declutter, organize, and make the necessary repairs. Remember, first impression is the most important thing. It's just like dating. If you don't like it at first sight, maybe the buyer is going to take longer to make that decision. So do all the decluttering. If it's necessary, repaint the unit, organize it. And if it's tenant occupied, like a lot of the units here in Miami, and the apartment is not showing as well, even try to talk to the tenant, negotiate, and give them some incentive so that the unit will show better. Some incentives could be 2 times a month, free cleaning services. It could be discounting the rent. It could be different things that you can do with some tenants that you can accommodate, because at the end of the day, if your unit is tenant occupied, it's not fun and it's not nice to have people walking into your apartment when you don't have any gain into showing it and your owner is basically kicking you out. It's not a nice place to be when it comes to tenants. So having that good relationship, it's really, really important. Number 3, and this is very important, know the ins and outs of financing of the building, because not knowing this can make your deal fall apart. What is the financial status of your buildings? Are there enough reserve? What's the percentage of the units that are owner occupied? Is there any assessment coming up? Is there recertification coming up? All of these things are really important to know because this will affect the way your buyer is going to obtain the financing. And that's why a lot of deals fall apart, because they figured out all of these things at the very end. So you may be losing other opportunities that may be more qualified for your type of building. So know the ins and outs for the financing of your buyer and also for the time of negotiation of such offer. Say, for example, your building has an assessment. You can either offer to pay it in full before closing. You can offer to pay half of it and give a seller's credit. You can work around all of these things, or even if there is an upcoming assessment, all of these things you need to know so that you can negotiate better. Number 4, marketing and showings. This is extremely important because your property might be the best one in the entire city. But if nobody sees it, then what good is it, right? So if you're selling the property on your own or with an experienced realtor like myself, you have to make sure you're doing the most when it comes to marketing. And what I mean by that is top photography, top videography, top exposure. It's not just put it on the MLS and that's it. You really need to expose your property to the most amount of people possible in the best way. Have the strategy. What's the first image you put on your ad? All of these things. And after that, make sure you or your realtor are top notch when it comes to communication and setting up the appointments and the availability to show your property. Because maybe your buyer is in town just for the weekend. And then you tell them, hey, let's just wait for the following week. They're not going to be here anymore. So ideally, you need to have a lot of freedom when it comes to showings and responsiveness, like so quick. That's what's going to make the property sell fast. Number 5, disclosures. You need to know what are your obligations as a seller when it comes to disclosing certain things to the buyer. If you're working with a realtor, consult your realtor, or if you're selling on your own, please consult with an attorney, because not providing the necessary disclosures to your buyer can have severe consequences after closing. So make sure all the paperwork is on point, okay? It's not just like contract, sale, money, bank, that's it. No, there is a process. There are certain things that Florida requires, that Miami requires, so pay attention to that. Number 6, qualify the buyers. Remember, price is not everything. Even though the buyer may provide to you a pre-approval letter, it doesn't mean they're fully able to close on your condo unit. Why? Because you need to know what is the DTI, debt to income ratio, what's their credit score, where is the down payment. Some people have the down payment overseas. How long does it take to bring that down payment here to the States? Or maybe it's in stocks, and by the time you sign the contract, stocks go down and they don't want to sell the stocks anymore. It's several things that you need to know so you can really evaluate how strong, financially speaking, is your buyer. Number 1. And number 2, also your building itself, your association may have their own requirements to approve a buyer, like a credit score. Some people have the approval and all of these things, and then they go through the process just to realize the building has a minimum credit score requirement. Also, is your building a non-warrantable building, and maybe the buyer is putting a very low down payment, taking advantage of a specific financial program, but because your building is not warrantable, not all loan options are applicable to your building, and the ones that are require a higher down payment. So there are a lot of pieces that you need to be aware of, so you make sure whoever you're entering into a contract with are really strong, financially speaking. Number 7, negotiating and accepting an offer. Like I said, price is not everything. You need to know first where you stand, what are your needs. Maybe you live in the property, need more time to stay there. Maybe you have a tenant and you have a lease in place. You have different variables that you need to consider when it comes to accepting an offer, and also how flexible the buyer is. Consider everything and not only the price. And also, if there is any assessment or major repairs that needs to be done, disclose it beforehand, because they're gonna know about it sooner or later. So it's better to tackle those things beforehand and see if the buyer is willing to work with you, if they are willing to accept, and there is a mutually agreed term so that you can finally close on the property down the line. Number 8, initial deposit and inspection. Right when you sign the contract that you agreed to all the terms and price, the buyer needs to provide the initial deposit to an escrow or title agency, which is a third party that's going to hold the money until the property is closed, or if the contract gets canceled, they will disperse the money according to the terms of the contract. So once the buyer provides the deposit, at the same time, there is a period previously agreed in which the buyer has the option to perform an engineer inspection. It could be 7 days, it could be 10 days, it could be 15 days, whatever you guys agreed. They have that alternative. This is done by them at their own expense. It's an option, it's not mandatory. Of course, to my buyers, I recommend it all the time. And the point of the inspection is to know what basically they're walking into. Why? Because the contract here in Miami, Florida is an as-is contract, meaning that you're buying the property exactly how you saw it. That's how they are committing to buy the property from you. However, if there is something that comes up in the inspection that's not to their liking and they don't feel comfortable, whether it's minor or major, depending on the wording on the contract, they have the option to exit and get the money back from the escrow and title agency. There are many ways to work around it. One of them is you guys negotiate. You're not obligated to say, yes, do all of these repairs or to give credit. You're not obligated to do that at all. But if the repairs are something that you feel okay with doing or providing a credit, maybe it's to your benefit to come to a mutually middle point or agreed point between you and the buyer so you can move forward. If there is no agreement, like I said, within the inspection period, the buyer can cancel the contract and they will get their money back. Number 9, securing the financing and the condo application. This happens simultaneously, and it is the responsibility of the buyer to do these two things. And according to the contract, they have a time in which they have to secure the financing and finish the condo application and get accepted. But you as a seller, or if you're working with a professional realtor, need to make sure you do the proper follow-up to these things, because sometimes buyers take too long to provide the necessary documents to the loan, take too long to respond or to update certain things. So you need to be on top of the time frame, because if it takes too long, then the property cannot close or they ask for extensions, yada, 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 yada. So you better stay on top of things too. Number 10, cha-ching, cha-ching, time to cash, ready to close. When you have the bank commitment letter and the condo approval, you're all set and ready to close. But before you get your check, you are going to do what's called a final walkthrough, where the buyer is going to come to your condo unit, check it out, make sure everything is exactly the same as agreed in the contract, all the fixtures, everything that they saw when they moved in and it's in the contract should be there. And once everything is verified, you guys are ready to close, whether it is in person or virtual. The closing is usually set either the same day or the day after, but the final walkthrough has to be really, really close to the closing date. And that's it. You sold your condo in 10 steps. And this has been all for today. So if you want to know more about selling your condominium, perhaps a market update, a market analysis, or even if you want to know more about the recertification program, the new law here in Miami, please reach out to me if you're thinking of selling, buying, investing, or even renting. I'll be able to help you. Just send me a text, send me an email, give me a call, and I'll be more than happy to help you make the move.